Welcome to Confident AF Live, taking your mindset next level to get next year's results today with me, your host, Brandon Foster. Are you a badass peep with big dreams, ready to turn your unrealistic goals into reality? Confident AF Live is the gateway to enormous new opportunities and unlimited possibilities. The unrealistic can suddenly become realistic for you if you believe it. Are you ready to take your dreams and results to the next level? Then stay tuned as we help crack open the door to new ways of impactful thinking and believing about yourself with mindset practices for badass people like you. Confident AF Live starts right now. Hello, Boo, and welcome to another live episode of Confident AF Live. Super excited you're here. Today, we're going to talk about it is okay to say no. And I feel like we just need to affirm that several different times today. Let's put our hands over our hearts and just tell ourselves, I forgive you, first name, Brandon, whoever you are, listening, forgive you for thinking that it's bad or wrong or evil for you to say no. I love you. It's okay to say no. Really, it is totally okay to say no. It's 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 okay to say no. I forgive you for thinking that you think that it's not okay to say no, but it really is okay to say no. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say no. It's okay to say no. That's what today's whole episode is about, is that it's okay to say no. And I first want to talk about why saying no is an invaluable tool and resource to grow and scale your business and just as a human being. The first reason why is because when you're able to articulate and say no, people will just trust you more. I didn't expect that to be the first thing that comes out of my brain today, but apparently that's the most important truth I'm meant to share, is that people will trust you more, because if you're always saying yes about everything, then the chances are you're probably not being honest about all those yeses. And so I feel like when you are willing to say no, people are going to trust your yeses more, because they know that the yes means more, because when you actually want to say no, you actually will say no. So when you do say yes, you're not saying yes because you feel guilty, obligated, or because you have to say yes. You're saying yes because you really want to say yes, because you're willing to say no. Are y'all with me so far? And in fact, Brene Brown and her book, Daring Greatly, actually talks about, I don't remember who the CEO of what company this was, but basically he has like this open forum session with all of his employees, and they would ask him really hard questions. No hard question was off the table, but he wasn't afraid to say, no, we're not doing this. Here's why. No, we're not going to go that direction. And here's why. And she was like surprised that people loved him, adored him, even though they might not like his answers. And she asked, the people in the audience, she's like, why do you all love what he's saying, even though he's saying no? And they said, because he's honest, and because he explains the reasoning, he explains the thought process. He's not hiding anything. And I think that's really, really important. And I remember that when my grandmother died, one of the biggest qualities that people admired about my grandmother was that her yes meant yes and her no meant no. And the reason why people loved and admired that quality so much about her is because of what I said earlier, which is when she said yes, you knew she really meant it. And when she said no, she also really meant that. So she was a very, very honest woman, a very honest person. And because she was honest, you could trust that if she said she was going to do something, she was going to do it. And if she said that she felt a certain way, then you know that that's how she really, really, really felt. And I think there's a lot to say about that. So the first thing I want to say when it comes to saying no is, why are we afraid to say no? Well, like any fear that we have, a fear, if we go with the acronym that people toss around all the time, false evidence appearing real, the reason why we're afraid to say no is not that we're actually afraid to say no. Like you can say no, and like that's really easy. Like everybody says no, right? But we're afraid to say no because of the results or what might happen, the what if scenario after we say no, right? So we are afraid of how people are going to react emotionally to our no. We are afraid how people are going to respond, which is thinking through their action when we say no. We're afraid of what people are going to think about us when we say no. We're afraid of the judgments people will have of us when we say no. We are afraid of people's perspective of us when we say no. And we're afraid of what they're going to tell other people about us when we say no. And I remember listening to either a podcast or an interview of Oprah, and she said that one of the hardest lessons for her to learn was to say no. And a big piece of it was because everybody knows how much money she makes. Like it's like published. And so when people call her and ask her like, can you save the children, which is the example she used, and they know she has the money. So what is it going to mean when she says no to giving to that charity or that organization? And I feel like in terms of like saying no when you have money, because I feel like that's a piece that I guess needs to be addressed for those of you who are listening today, which is, there's a lot of reasons why people can repel wealth. And one of them is they're afraid to have the money because they're afraid everybody's going to ask them for the money. And really, it's not really people asking about the money that's scary. It's that you don't know how to handle it, and you don't know how to say no, and you're worried about what people are going to think. And it's just you don't want to encounter that situation. So if you're repelling money because you don't want to avoid that situation, the only way to neutralize it is to be able to embrace that learning experience and have that situation. So with Oprah, the example that she gave in this podcast interview or YouTube video was, I believe, Stevie Wonder calling and asking money for charity. And she, for the first time, said no. And she thought that Stevie Wonder would like hate her or be angry at her. And instead he was just like, okay, no problem, not a big deal. And like moved on. And one of the chapters I'm looking at in my book is about fear. And there's two sides of fear. There's the fear of taking action. So not doing something because you're afraid to take the action. And then there's the fear of taking action when you don't want to take the action because you're afraid to say no, which is what this whole podcast episode is somewhat inspired by. And the reason why we're afraid to say no is because of all the reasons I've already mentioned. And you can think of a bazillion instances where you might be conflicted. You're building a business and somebody asks you to go out to eat dinner or go to a baseball game or go to see a show or go to see a movie. Your significant other asks you if you want to go out to eat or go to the in-laws, and like you just want to do something else, you want to stay home. Like there's so many examples, like your kids ask you to do something. Like there's so many different examples of where people can ask you to do something and you're afraid to say no. And so here's the first piece that I really want all of you all that are listening today to really think about, which is when you agree to do something that you really don't want to do and that you actually want to say no, first of all, you're ignoring your desires, your needs, your wants, and your intention, your heart is in doing it for the wrong reasons, And when I find myself saying no to do things that I really don't want to do you know what happens? I get bitter, I get angry, and I get resentful. And what's so ironic is like if someone asks you to come over and help them move and you really don't want to help them move, like, and there's other things you want to work on, you show up there and all your brain is going to think about is all the things you wish you had done that you could have been doing. And now you're bitter, angry, resentful towards your friend for helping them, and you're angry at them for asking you, and da 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 da. And now, like, you don't show up the same way. It's messed up energy. It's bitter, angry, resentful energy. Now, there's two ways in this example and all examples to reframe. One is, you know, I truly believe that our hearts are good. Like, you want to be a good person. So maybe it's just like, I do want to help you move, but today's not a good day. Could I come over tomorrow and help you after I finish this project? That kind of a thing. Or you reframe the mindset piece so that you neutralize the energy of why you don't want to go because you're afraid the product's not going to be done. You need to get moving on it. Like, whatever it is that's going to cause you to feel bitter, angerness, or resentment, like that resistance, neutralizing that through forgiveness and reframing so that your mindset going to help is good. Because anytime that you say yes to something that you don't want to do, that you should have said no, chances are it will create those emotions that I just said: bitterness, angerness, and resentment. And who are you bitter, angry, and resentment toward? You're actually bitter, angry, and resentment towards yourself because you didn't honor what you needed in that moment for you, that felt the best thing for you. And you didn't listen to yourself and you weren't honest with yourself. But what happens is anytime we feel something interior with ourselves, we project that onto other people. And energy is energy, whether you speak it or not. And so when you're bitter, angry, resentful at a situation, oftentimes, whatever it is, you're not going to show up in the same way. And I've seen this happen in businesses. I mean, even I've been guilty of this in certain regards with certain things. If people tell you, well, you should add a whole bunch of bonuses to your program because if you don't add bonuses, people won't buy. So then you add the bonuses and then you feel like guilty and bitter and resentful that you added these bonuses. And you don't want to create the bonuses or whatever because you didn't say no. You didn't say, no, I'm not adding those bonuses. No, I don't want to do that. I don't need it. You're not really honoring yourself. I've seen people do this too, where they agree to do something, but then the situation changes and like too much time has passed. And now what did feel good at one time doesn't feel good anymore. And I've seen people this happen to people in terms of like, had a client who was starting to charge for different speaking gigs. And they had someone who asked them if they could do a speaking gig. They said, sure, no problem. They're like, this is my rate. They said, oh, this is good. Everything felt good. And then the person paid the deposit. And so the person was like, I'll just let this person go. And then the person came back like 2 months later and was like, hey, I want to hire you to speak. And the person said, okay, no problem. And this is the price. And the person said, yeah, that's not what you quoted. And what the person could have said, and what I told the client next time is, next time you need to be honest and say, yes, I did quote that because that felt good at that time, but a lot's changed since then. This is my new price, my new rate. You are completely free to honor the new rate and pay for that deposit. Or if you don't want me to come and speak now because the price is raised, that's cool too. Instead, this person didn't honor themselves and just agreed to do it, even though it no longer felt good to them to do it. And yeah, you just never want to do that because then you feel like you're devaluing your time, devaluing what you have to give because your value has increased, which is why it didn't feel good when that person came back to them and was like, remember that price a long time ago? And so, saying no is very valuable in honoring yourself, honoring where you're at, honoring your needs, listening to your heart, listening to where you are. Saying no does not make you, I'm looking at these notes that I wrote, mean, bad, selfish, rude. And here's the thing about selfish, because I feel like you could really easily get caught up. Well, I'm just thinking about myself. I'm not thinking about the other people. Well, if you're really thinking about the other people, you would really want people who have a good attitude and a good mood, who are eager and willing to serve to help that person than you if you're not being honest and you're being bitter, angry, and resentful. And also, I feel like it's our ego sometimes that gets in the way, especially if like you're a high ticket coach or if you're in any service based business, a travel entrepreneur, like whatever. Sometimes our ego can easily get the best of us and think it's my responsibility, my duty to serve this person. I'm the only person to serve this person. And if I don't serve this person, then they're gonna like die and their business is gonna fail or suffer, their vacation will be a disaster, whatever it is. And you have to remember that it's not your responsibility to save anybody. Your responsibility is to offer your service, which is worthy of massive compensation, as my friend Marina Francis says. But your responsibility is to provide high service to people, offer that service to people. But your job, your responsibility is never to save anyone. That is God's job, not your job. And so part of it is a little bit selfish, thinking that if you don't go and help, that there is no other way that God can help this person, that there's no other way that good things can happen. I also believe that when you really want to say no, is a great time to hand it over to God and be like, okay, God, I really feel bitter, angry, resentful. I do not want to do this. Please make a way for these other tasks to get done so that it feels good to me, or that we can do it a different date, or that somebody else helps them instead, you know? And I also feel like there's other possibilities when you want to say no, where you can find a way to contribute in a way that feels good to you. So I think another piece of this saying no is just getting clear on what piece of it you don't like, right? So it could be someone asks you, we'll use the move analogy, asks you to move today and you go, no, I can't do it today. It's last minute and da 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 da. That's fine. Like you really, it's not about helping them move. It's about helping them move today, right? Maybe someone wants you to do a speaking gig and the price doesn't feel in alignment. So maybe you say, you know what, for a full day speaking gig in person, that doesn't feel in alignment. I'm happy to honor the price that we talked about last time, but this is what I would offer instead, right? So there's a lot of different ways around to get to a yes that feels good to you. Like in the Oprah example, she could have said, no, I don't feel like donating that amount of money, but I can donate this. Or let me know when you have another charity. These are the charities that I'm looking to help with or organize. So what I'm saying with your approach to saying no is remember that you need to be kind, not in agreement, kind with the other people that you're saying no to, and leave them with something to look forward to. And I remember, I think this was from Charisma on Command that I learned this, which is whenever you're declining like an invitation to a party or a night out or a movie or a get together with friends or family and you're declining it, that one of the best things for you to do is say, unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to attend this time. However, I'd love to get a different date on the calendar. And a lot of times people will say, oh, I'd love to go, but I can't. And so they leave on the negative. But you always want to flip it. You always want to start with the negative, the truth, the no, and then you want to end it on a positive. Unfortunately, I won't be able to make it this time, but I would love to look at meeting again sometime in the future, that kind of a thing. Really important to leave on the positive. And the other piece that I really want you all to think about is that everything is a mirror, and our internal mechanism, our heart walls always lead us to the greatest good for everybody involved, for them and for us. And so oftentimes when we are denying what would feel good for us and what uh, is leading us, um, we're practicing in some regards self-rejection, self-abandonment, and that will always leave you feeling terrible. And it is not a way to live your life. I will also say there's times when my heart was leading me to do something, but I just like didn't want to do it. Which if you're faith-based, I'd be like the Holy Spirit guiding you and you're like, yeah, I don't want to do that. And I would say that oftentimes when your heart is leading you to do something, and you just feel like, yeah, I should say yeah, like not should as in like other people telling you to, but like your heart is like, the answer is yes. You really do want to do this, but you're like, there's little threads almost, it feels like little entanglements that are like, oh, but it could take long or whatever. Your brain is getting in the way. I think it's also important to differentiate yourself from your brain and from your heart. I think is really important too. So the moral of the story is, boo, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say no. Say no doesn't mean you're bad, doesn't mean you're a bad person, does not mean that you are selfish, doesn't mean that you're rude. Remember that when you say no, leave them on a high note and really get clear on what piece the no is, because you always can find a way to help, uplift, encourage people through the situation, even if you can't help that red hot minute because of what you have going on. And remember, it's not your responsibility to save anybody. Okay? So there you have it. Make sure if you haven't already, subscribe to this incredible podcast. Go check out my YouTube channel where we have lots of other videos. And of course, you know, I have that Facebook group and the upcoming book too, Confident AF, Unleash Your Inner Badass. I love you, boo. Thanks for listening. Have a great day. You have been listening to Confident AF Live, taking your mindset next level to get next year's results today with host Brandon Foster on transformationtalkradio.com. Listen or watch live every Wednesday, 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, where I help badasses like you with big dreams learn to take their impact and results next level, turning those unrealistic goals into reality. Confident AF Live is the gateway to enormous new opportunities and unlimited possibilities. For more information, get in touch with me, Brandon, at brandonrfoster.com.